Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello, everybody at home, and welcome to Houselights, House of Gerwig, Greta Gerwig. We are starting our three-part series of director Greta Gerwig with her directorial solo debut with Lady Bird in 2017. And this is starring Saoirse Ronan, Laurie Metcalf, Terry Letts, Lucas Hedges, Beanie Feldstein, and Lisan Al-Gaib himself, Timothée Chalamet.
Yes.
I was gonna say,
Yes.
I'm like, we're not name dropping Timothée
He's
Chalamet,
in the movie.
who's like blowing up right
Yes.
The Mahdi! The Mahdi!
As it was written, he's in Lady Bird.
now.
And what's also awesome is that Thufir from Dune is also in this, Stephen McKinley Henderson, who is the drama teacher and director in Lady Bird. And also we cannot mention Lois Smith. There's a lot of really great people in this movie, and I think that's one of the really great things about this. One of the appealing things about this, like, even though this is Gerwig's directorial debut, again solo, because she did co-direct a movie before this, but we're just starting with her solo career. She clearly surrounded herself with amazing people, just like I do every single week when we record Houselights, because with me, as they always are, is Dr. Sci-Fi himself, Darren Moser, and the one and only John Mills. How are you guys doing tonight?
Well, I have not thrown myself out of any cars lately, but I have found the joy of small cast musicals has repossessed me, and I'm really pursuing that right now. So sorry, that's in the movie, folks. Those are two things from the movie that I'm making reference to.
Yeah, doing good. This is probably the least sci-fi movie I've watched in a while, but no, it was, yeah, it definitely had that. What is it? I remember seeing like Bottle Rocket back when I was in film school, meaning like a movie that's kind of like, you can tell this one kind of hit the circuit first before it kind of went to theaters. And this definitely had that same vibe. And I recognized a lot of these places because I grew up in a town about 45 minutes away from Sacramento. So I'm like, hey, it's Sacramento. Not a lot of stuff is placed in Sacramento, but this movie definitely is.
Yes, it certainly is. It's honestly, I think that it's fitting that you refer to Bottle Rocket, because if this movie has a vibe, it very much reminded me of a sort of Wes Anderson before he went completely Wes Anderson. You know, there are phases of Wes Anderson that you go through.
Yeah.
The more rooted Wes Anderson, the one that acknowledges that human reality exists. That's the sort of Wes Anderson vibe that's coming off of this film.
Yeah. Modern Wes Anderson is very much, I don't know if stage acting was a cartoon.
I like the way you described that. That would be fairly accurate. Yes. And go back through our catalog to listen House of Anderson, where we covered the films of Wes Anderson earlier in the series. So there you go.
And I think the last one that we reviewed wasn't his latest film, but it's the last one we reviewed, actually had a starring role with Saoirse Ronan in it.
That is true. That is absolutely correct. She was in that film. And
French Dispatch.
I'm going to give her a lot of credit here because she is Irish. And I know this seems like a silly thing, but
I mean, she had red hair, so.
But for an actress to give a very quality performance while also completely hiding any level of her accent, like, it's a lot tougher to cover your accent than people think it is. And she sounds like she came from the area that this character comes from. And that is not a small feat. And it seems like such a silly thing to focus on at the outset. But I think that is because you mentioned the cast earlier, Tristan, that speaks to the level of cast. Like, it's very important to get the right cast for your film, obviously. And the director has to get the best performances possible and all of that. And so this isn't taking anything away from anybody or anything like that. But for Ronan to completely inhabit the character to the point where I don't even think about the fact that she's masking her accent, until afterward where I say, oh, wow, there wasn't even a single word where I could tell that she had an accent. Like that's impressive. And I would use that just to go into the fact that this is an hour and a half long. It's not a huge, expansive epic. It's got a pretty light touch, but everybody's approaching the material in a very serious manner, which I think also separates it a little bit from Wes Anderson, because usually even the great performances in a Wes Anderson film are done with a little cheeky wink at the audience. Whereas this, everybody plays it straight. And I think that's what helps the material come to life.
I think earnest would be a good word.
Yeah, that's a good word. You're right.
For their performances. Like, this felt very, very realistic without being pretentious. It felt very, I'm not to repeat myself, but it just felt very earnest. I feel like, like Laurie Metcalf as her mom, you right off the bat. I mean, that opening scene where they're in the car, they're listening to the Grapes of Wrath audio tape, and they're both crying. And you're like, oh man, okay, they're really connecting. They must have a good relationship. And then at the drop of a hat, they just start screaming at each other, yelling at each other. And you realize, oh, okay, yeah, this is just like every other complicated mother-daughter relationship. And then it goes so far that she throws herself out of a moving vehicle. And then boom, we cut to the next scene.
It's a great start to the movie. It establishes exactly what their dynamic is, like you said, Tristan. And it's unexpected and then just the whole rest of like the whole opening act, she's just in that pink cast and you're like, oh man. And we've all kind of had those moments in the car of like, I really just want to get away from this person. We don't throw ourselves from moving vehicles, but it takes it an extra step.
I wish I hadn't seen that scene spoiled in somebody's recap of the movie years ago or something like that, where they were talking about, oh, Lady Bird is one of the best films of the year. And I actually saw the scene where I saw that moment from the scene where she throws herself from the car. I wish I could have I knew it was coming, basically. I wish I could have had that moment of true surprise with it, because I think that would have been delightful to encounter it and be shocked by it, as opposed to sitting there going, I know it's coming. There we go. I saw that thing before. And
I think they ruined it in the trailers too.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
It's just, it's a shame. Marketing people stink sometimes. They don't know how to restrain themselves.
That's why I total tangent, but that's why I always respected Fincher's. They call Fincher a control freak, and when Gone Girl came out, he said that he wanted complete control over the advertising, like, and final say on all the ad spots and trailers and everything like that. And they were only allowed to use footage from the first half of the film.
But it makes perfect sense. I mean, to continue that tangent, imagine if they hadn't kept Grogu completely under wraps before The Mandalorian came out.
Right.
The impact of the end of that episode.
Sacrifice of merchandising. Like, they didn't make anything because they knew if they put it out there to be produced, it would have been spoiled. And that was probably one of the last great non-spoiled things in Star Wars. We haven't had anything like that in a while.
And I think that my reaction to this film, to Lady Bird, might have been stronger had I been permitted to have that surprise reaction at the beginning of it. If I rolled this back and I saw the poster and I'm walking through and I'm like, sure, why not? I'll go see it. And I go in and that took me by surprise. I think I might have had an easier time finding access to the film on sort of like on a more emotional level, because I think knowing it was there put me on guard in a strange way, where I was like, okay, what's your trick now? Sort of, again, it feels like I'm dragging the guy, but it's sort of like Wes Anderson eyes. It put me in the Wes Anderson mode where I'm like, all right, I'm waiting for the surprise here. I'm waiting for the pull throughout the movie.
So you felt like it was going to be like quirky and wacky or something like that?
Yes. I think it put me in the wrong frame of mind to approach the film. Yes, I do.
Yeah,
and
overall,
this was your first time watching
it. What I would say with this movie.
No, not at all. Yes, this was my first time watching the film. I'd been meaning to watch it for some time because it had so much positive, press and everything. I think it was Time magazine called it like one of the top 10 films of 2017 or something like that. So yeah, you guys know how the queue works. you keep meaning to get around to something and you just never do. So I'm glad I had an excuse to this time.
Then you start podcasting about movies, and your queue is totally shot because you can't even choose your own movies. It's by committee. Oh, we know.
Mm-hmm. And nobody will do House of Breen, and that's just, what are you going to do?
Darren, what did you know about this movie before you watched it?
Oh, not a lot. Like I said, I kind of knew it had that semi-biographical bottle rocket-ish, like it feels like the kind of movie that goes on a circuit. Like, I was not at all surprised that this premiered first as a circuit film before hitting theaters. But that's all pretty much. I don't even remember the trailer. I know the only thing I really remember actually is the whole name thing, where she kept being like, no, my name's Lady Bird. Like, call me Lady Bird. It's my name. And that was kind of what the trailer was about. So I didn't really know where the plot's going. This movie was also kind of strange in the fact that I thought it was kind of done, and then it kind of just kept going for an extra 10 minutes that I'm like, oh, okay, I guess we're not done. And then we were done. But it was it ended very weirdly in that regard.
I never want to presume anybody knows or doesn't know anything, but when you say circuit, you mean it went on like the sort of like the film festival circuit before it got a wide release. Yeah.
No, the Mario Kart circuit is what I meant. But
I never want to presume,
No.
This was a wild ride on the Rainbow Road.
Circuit.
It was crazy.
Yeah. Stop it.
But this is, it's interesting because, like you said, Tristan, we're covering Greta Gerwig, but a very small solo directing filmography, only 3 so far at time of recording, and one of those is Barbie, which is like, it's like the road to Barbenheimer is only a couple of years long, but but as a first piece, I didn't know very much about it, but it does have that weird kind of write what you're like, I don't feel, and I think she's been interviewed Greta's saying this, like, the things in this movie didn't exactly happen to me, but they are the tone and the flavor of like the circle that I knew. So it feels very real, but it's not like my dad and my brother were going for the same job and that exactly happened like in the movie. Like, obviously not, but it gives it a grounded realism. Like, there's a lot of movies like this, or even made me think more sitcom-y, which is kind of weird. It made me think of like Malcolm in the Middle, or like that middle America, white kind of blue collar vibe, but in a movie sense, obviously. And as you're coming of age,
I think that's a good question, because you mentioned, obviously we're going to get to Barbie as we go through that, and Barbie is her 3rd solo directed film. So one of the ways I've been trying to process this since watching it is, do I see something in Gerwig's direction that indicates to me that she would be entrusted? Like, this would be a director I would look at and say, I entrust you on this big budget. Nobody knew Barbie was going to do the money that it did. Right. Obviously, you can never predict whether something is going to be
but
that
it's still
successful.
Not like a little indie Barbie movie. There's some weight behind it.
What makes Mattel and the other producers, Margot Robbie, sit there and look at Greta Gerwig and say, yes, my big tongue-in-cheek pop culture smash sort of thing that I'm trying to do. Do you guys see that in here? Do you see a director who's ready for that phone call in just a few years?
And again, this is 50% of her filmography at this point. It's this and Little Women.
Yeah.
So this is half of it. I mean, not to keep talking, but I think I see someone who knows how to tell a story about a main character, how to really, present, like, it's a well-told story. And I don't know. I mean, obviously it came way under budget. It's a low budget movie. It made a lot of money versus what its budget was. It's not a technical movie. It doesn't have a million special effects or anything like that, as most first movies don't, but it's solid. It's a solid story. It makes me care about the character. It makes me believe that these are real people. And I mean, that's what a director's doing, is pulling those performances out, especially in a semi-autobiographical kind of a tone that this movie is. So I buy it. I think that's I really want to revisit that question next week after we cover the second half of her 2-film filmography at that point. But I'd say so.
Okay.
I feel like if this was, how do I put this? If this was before 2008, like say that this was a 90s Barbie movie, okay? I'm sorry, not like say that Greta Gerwig did this in the 90s. She would not have gotten Barbie, in my opinion. I think the reason why she got Barbie is because of superhero films and Star Wars, the revival of Star Wars. I think that superhero films and Star Wars films started taking chances on lesser known directors, people who had a vision, who could do a lot with a little. And of course, at that time, I mean, we all know now that it's bullshit, that they wanted somebody cheap that they thought they could control. But they said, like, yeah, we're really, going to the indie space to get that unique voice. No, you're not. I mean, that was the public spin, that was the PR spin. But this is not, I'm not trying to degrade Gerwig whatsoever. I think she pulled it off, and she did a great job, and she deserves her success. I think that's one of the reasons why she got Barbie, is because if you look at what Lady Bird did and what Little Women did, it showed her strengths in story and characterization, and she clearly has an eye. I mean, like, if you look at the style of Lady Bird, that's one of the things it's very present within the movie. And in my opinion, I think the way that it's shot, the color palette, I think she originally wanted to shoot it on Super 16, but that would have been too expensive to actually shoot it on celluloid. And so they shot it on the Alexa Mini, and they just really emphasized the digital noise to replace the natural grain that we would have gotten from Super 16. And it's that kind of attention to detail. I mean, like, you have Gerwig who's in it with all those kind of details, and then you have, like a Marvel director who I'm not going to name his name, but doesn't even know what 4K HDR means. It's just it's things like that. And so I feel like when you hire someone like Gerwig, she throws herself into it. She's all about it, and she lives and breathes it. And I think that mixed with the time that Barbie came out, where production companies were willing to take risks on lesser known directors, I think it was a perfect storm. And she proved the point.
No, of course. But I mean, so to that point, Darren, you see somebody who can tell a story. Tristan, you see somebody who has an eye for the technical side. So regardless of special effects work, there's an eye toward how to use the medium to get it to look the way you need it to look for the sake of the story. Cool. Well, I dig that, because I think those are things that get overlooked, and like, for me, I look at a film like this, and I agree with both of you. I look at this, and maybe I'd be a terrible producer, because I would look at something like this and I would say, this is somebody who's so, I wouldn't necessarily look at it and be like, well, she digital noise or something like that, or that feels like my friends that I hung out with. I would look at it and I would say, this is somebody who, when she sits down, there's no hesitation behind the camera. There's no I can't sniff out any second guessing. I see somebody who sat down and said, I'm going from point A to B to C to D, and I will take it all the way as far as I need to, but I know where I started, I know where I'm going to end, and I know how I'm going to get there. And that definitely, for something that you want to have like as a big production, you're like, yeah, that person needs to be sitting in the chair. I need somebody that on the day of can say, got it. No, it's not time to do that. We already figured that out. Or to have the wisdom to say, this isn't working on set. Let's figure out a different way to do it. And I do see that director behind the lens here who has that surety of vision that sits there and, like, the movie's an hour 33 minutes, something like that. That is also a director who isn't going to go crazy and say, I have to tell my story in 3 hours. It's somebody who sits down and says, you're not getting an ounce of fat on the story. Now, of course, budget and timing, all of those sorts of things go into it. But even people on indie productions, it can get, there's no special effects. I can just shoot as long as I want to. David Lynch discovers digital, and suddenly his editor just sits there and falls asleep in the booth, and he walks in and goes, that's great. Just print it. It's fine. So, yeah.
To add to even more to what you're saying, her original script was 350 pages for Lady Bird.
Yes.
Lady
Yes.
Bird. I don't know why I said Berg. And it shows that, I mean, a lesser creative mind would have said, like, no, I need the Ridley Scott director's cut of Lady Bird.
I could easily see how
yes.
it would spiral because, what moments do you keep? Obviously, there's the mother-daughter through line, but there's a lot of tangential moments of her life in this movie. And it's like, I'm wondering where those extra 100 and something pages are. Does she go to summer camp? Does she go to like where? But that's all too much. And that's all fat. Like it's honed down into this core story. And like you said, Tristan, about the digital grain, I had to remember this is meant to be set in fall of 2002, and it feels like it. And I almost wouldn't know how to tell you why it feels like it, but it kind of has that early digital, cameras. Like obviously it's shot on modern equipment, but it feels like something from the early aughts that doesn't have that
it's lived
super
in.
sharp. Yeah. It's just the way the color is and the grain, and they didn't go so far as to pull out like a Super 8 camera, a high 8 digital, mini DV camera and shoot it on that. I mean, that would be awesome, but that's not the kind of vibe they're going for. But they found a good balance of it not looking like trash, because old digital in those years, it's nothing compared to now. But it has that feel.
Yeah, I think you're out. Like, Darren, when did you graduate high school?
In 2002, this year.
Okay, like I graduated in 2004, and so I was in both you and I were in high school in 2002, and it's crazy, like how it feels like, even though it's a Catholic school, like I didn't go to a Catholic school, but like it's the people, the way they acted, the way they talked, just all the nonsense. And
not a lot of people have cell phones. Like those are
I'm glad,
becoming a thing.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because
the smartphone revolution hadn't even happened by then.
No, but even the flip phones, like barely anybody had one. It was still very
barely.
New.
It was it was
those
very
of us
rare.
who lived in more civilized areas, we had them, but that's okay.
With the cell phones, like I was like, as it was rolling, like as the movie started out, and they revealed that it was in 2002 and everything like that. I started thinking, I was just like, why? Like, what does it matter? It's just a coming of age story. Like how is 2002 that different from 2022 or something like that? And I started realizing how stupid of a comment that
internet,
is.
Quite a bit of a difference.
Like I started shouting in my own brain. I was like, that's an idiotic thing to say, Tristan, because one thing that was one of the big reasons why Gerwig wanted to have it take place when she was in high school was because of smartphones and the internet and everything. Oh, not just the internet, but like the boom of the internet. How like
everything changed over the next decade.
Yeah. And so she didn't want to make a story about, kids obsessed with their smartphones. And even though it's a generalization, it's a pretty accurate one. But it's it's one of those things where you're like, yeah, I think you would have had to invite more technology into the story. And in 2002, you don't have to.
Well, I mean, internet was it's the social media boom, right? And
right.
A
we say
film
internet,
like
but
this,
we mean social media,
with a character like this, you said it post social media boom. There's, to your point, there's no way you escape somebody's bullying her on Facebook or something like that. And that, I think, is a fair amount of wisdom on Gerwig's part, because you have to acknowledge at some point that world isn't one that you lived in. And the film winds up feeling less authentic because the director isn't telling a life experience that they went through. And for something like this to feel authentic, it has to be something that the director or author, or, the author at least, and she wrote the screenplay, obviously. I'm older than the both of you. How would I possibly update my high school experience to feel more like it was in 2005 or something like that? Right. It would be impossible, because none of the experiences I had would have been possible in the way that they were possible at the time. So Gerwig, again, shows smart decision-making to say, this will feel more real and more lived in and more authentic. Now, it's a period piece in that sense because it's telling, it is. It's, it's a time period that doesn't exist anymore. And so that maybe also is something that foretells, I haven't seen her adaptation of Little Women either. But honestly, I look at this and I'm like, well,
just saying.
Well, yeah, that was like 1982, right? That's when that's set.
83.
83. Okay, sorry, I always get that wrong. It was a tumultuous time, but I think that there's a comfort there that maybe foretells. I don't know. I haven't seen her adaptation of Little Women, so we'll find out next week. I'll find out next week.
I'm the same age as Greta, like you said, Tristan. This is the time that we grew up in, and I mean, like I said, he also said I lived 45 minutes from Sacramento, so this was Northern California, and I didn't go to a Catholic all-girls school. Slight difference in my upbringing, but it felt real in a way that there's not a lot of movies set in the early 2000s. It's really not a time period that there are some like the Love Actually, but that's what was more present day that aren't present day. It's strange to pick a time, a historical period piece, as John would say.
Well, you gotta think about it though. Is like think about when that '70s show came out,
right?
Like we're reaching that timeline, like in just 2 years. I mean, not even. I think Lady Bird
'90s show is the same kind of a jump. I think maybe.
Yeah, it's that, but that's what I'm saying is that like where we were, like we're further from when that '70s show aired to when that '70s show was set.
Yes.
So that's the kind of weird place that we're in. Like that millennials are just, that's why we're all starting to go get colonoscopies now, is because we're starting to realize that we're getting older. And it is crazy, like to think of, 2002 as a period piece, but it is, and it's going to be that way. So I want to talk about the cast a little bit more. I want to talk about like, John, you talked about her accent and you gave a lot of praise. What did you think of Ronan's performance overall? Like, did she, we talked about how niche it is because it's 2002 Sacramento girl going to an all-girl Catholic school and everything like that. But at the same time, even though it was niche, it felt, universal in a sense of we all have growing pains. Like, were you able to connect to this movie even though you're an 82-year-old man?
83. You made the same mistake I did earlier. Sorry. What I was not brass tacks. No, on an emotional level, nah. I mean, and part of that is I am far enough out of high school that like I'm like, yeah, everybody's a dumb kid. That sort of like I'm at that phase. And but that doesn't mean I couldn't, plug into what the movie was saying and what the character was going through. To bring it back to the performance question, Ronan creates a character that I believe exists. I believe that this person exists in the world while I'm watching the film. I don't feel that there's an affectation or some sort of clever gimmick to try to trick me into thinking the person exists. This feels like, this is either a real person or based on a real person that existed sort of thing, which I think in a film like this is exactly what a performance is going for. I'll give the same amount of praise to her dad and to Laurie Metcalf as her mom, because I believe that those people exist. And especially difficult is to watch Laurie Metcalf's performance and divorce it from recognizing her from her role on Roseanne.
Same.
There was an incredibly popular sitcom. And, the fact that I can sit down and watch it and not think, oh, that's Laurie Metcalf from Roseanne, and instead this is just Lady Bird's mom, I think that Ronan does a great enough job to that Laurie Metcalf winds up being what I would call a performance casualty, because her performance makes Ronan's even better. And they have a real ability to function as an actual existing relationship on screen. So I think Ronan is lesser if Metcalf doesn't give what she's giving. And I think Metcalf is able to work with Ronan in such a way that her performance is elevated. And again, Tracy Letts, he winds up giving exactly the right dad performance to counterbalance the two of them. And so it's like there's a really strong triumvirate right there of performance that is appropriately balanced, I think. It would have been way too easy to lean into Ronan at the expense of these actors. But again, Gerwig as a director recognizes that she needs to let Letts and Metcalf shine in their own way to make it all work.
It's interesting that you say that, because I agree with you that these were great performances and that they felt like real people. And one of the reasons why, in my opinion, they felt like real people is because I disliked a lot of the things that they were doing. And I say that in a good way. Like, you don't have to be a perfect mother. You don't have to be a perfect father on screen. I feel like, there's so many times when we have a protagonist, that protagonist has to be a paragon of virtue, and all of their friends and family has to be paragon of virtues and say all the right things in all the right ways in order to be perceived as quote unquote good. Laurie Metcalf's performance as Lady Bird's mom, she does some really petty stuff. She says some really horrible things to Lady Bird, some things that, like, she guilt trips her and manipulates her and, like, puts a lot on her that no teenager deserves to have put on them while they're being a teenager. And there was a lot of times when I felt like the father was just a weak man and just like, like just not speaking up when he needed to. But these are real people. That stuff happens.
But see, I think, yeah. No, I'm sorry to cut you off, but like that was sort of like a criticism of the dad character that I would have expected. But what I think the true, I don't want to use the word brilliance, but the true strength of his performance is that he, because the mom shares that your dad's going through a lot. They're laying people off. So you get a bit of dialogue while they're having their face off at one point, where the mom is giving her a guilt trip. But like, why is the dad so restrained? It's because he's under this crushing stress and weight at work. And it's like, that's the real world thing, where a real person is going to withdraw. They're either going to blow up, or they're going to withdraw, or they're going to do this, or they're going to do that. And this is one of those avenues that a dad can go down. And so in a sense, this dad winds up being actually a really good dad, because he never throws it on Lady Bird. The mom throws it on her, but he doesn't. And so he's actually taking a slightly more noble approach to his pressures and just withdrawing. It's not healthy because he's internalizing everything and blah, for his own, blah, 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 all that stuff. You can break that down. But again, it's a complexity, and it's a very quiet sort of complexity for the character that I think is good, is really good. And I think that Laurie Metcalf finding out, what the mom does and everything she goes through during the day, you kind of get like that's how real world relationships work. Is sometimes you transfer your stress from one part of your life to the other one because it's the only way you can get it out of you.
Yeah, I think the dad's arc, which is a nice little arc, also really helps set it in 2002. You have an older generation that's being replaced by younger because technology is changing. Like the scene where his son is like going for the same job as him. Like, ooh, you're kind of feeling that. But yeah, but I love the scenes where he's got the little secret with Lady Bird about applying for East Coast, and like that's very dad. That's very like I'm in your corner, kid. Yes. Yeah. And I love that. And it's not that the mom is the villain. She's not. She's the mom. And you can tell she's got stressors on her. But like, again, the little thing of him saving the discarded drafts of the letter and comforting her when she circles back to the airport but misses Lady Bird. Like, again, his little arc is really nice, but we barely see him. He's barely in this movie. But what we do get is really well done.
That airport scene, that is really, really well done. And I read a little behind the scenes, and Laurie Metcalf told Gerwig, I can do this twice, and that's all you're getting. Mm-hmm. I love that. I absolutely love that. Mm-hmm. So Lucas Hedges as Danny, that relationship between Lady Bird and Danny, I thought that was really tastefully done. And the fact that it was put into theater kids is a very realistic aspect of being a theater kid and being surrounded by the people who are on the outs of society, are the X-Men, like everything like that. And so it made sense that Danny was gay. It absolutely made sense that Danny was gay. What did you, Darren, what did you think about that relationship between Lady Bird and Danny? Like, did you like that Danny Bird, did you like,
they didn't get married, so that didn't happen, but did you like, it would have been easy for the story to be one and done with Danny. Like, oh, Lady Bird sees him kiss the other guy, and then that's the last we see him. Was. I mean, not that he was, but it obviously he didn't drop off the face of the earth, but it kind of was one and done in the fact that this movie is jumping through time a lot. It's a whole, I don't know if it's like a whole school year or exactly how long it is, but we at least go through Thanksgiving and Christmas. So it's kind of like her senior year. But yeah, because then it's kind of shown by like she crosses out his name and writes the new guy on her wall, and we just kind of move on. So not that we don't see him, and the part with like his grandmother and stuff like that circles back, but I think it's well done in the fact that it doesn't dwell on Danny and be like, oh, this is what the movie's going to be about, is this one and done relationship. It's like, no, we're going to move on because that's life. And I mean, just again, there's all these other little stories, but they're presented so well that you believe Danny has a whole other arc that we just don't see of this senior year. I think a lot of, I'm going to pronounce his last name, Father Leviach. Yes, we'll go with that.
Just say Steve McKinley Henderson.
Yes.
Just say Henderson.
Yeah. Oh, so much easier. But yeah, with Steve McKinley Henderson, who I could only see his Dune role. I'm sorry, but I kept thinking he was a computer during the entire time. But that's another little arc of him obviously having depression or some sort of health issue. And it's just the interwovenness of these stories that he also saw and sought, help from, Lady Bird's mom. And so it's just all these players of this story. It felt very real. It in a way that movies can easily not. You can easily feel like, oh, and then we're going to add this character who totally doesn't act like a kid in their senior year would, and we're going to give them way too much screen time. It's like, no, there was none of that. So I applaud it for that.
And one thing, like you talked about realism, one thing that I really appreciated was, and I was grinning like an idiot when these scenes came up, but when Henderson was doing theater games with the students, apparently Henderson actually teaches at Juilliard. Like, he's a graduate of Juilliard and he teaches at Juilliard. And so Gerwig said, just do theater games. He's like, okay, I can do that. And so what we saw was just him doing theater games with the kids.
Easiest check I ever earned.
Yeah. And it's so real. It works so well. But then of course they end it with a very scripted moment of him being the first to cry. And you're like, oh, this guy has some issues. But then the very next scene, boom, they just butt it right up against with this weird exposition scene of a kid saying like, yeah, I think like his kid died or something. Anyway, my mom's here. Bye. And you're like, that's such a real moment. It's funny and sad at the same time, but that is exactly how kids are.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, I'll be the bad guy on this one. I think that while there's a very clear, storytelling sense and everything like that, and Gerwig is very much in control from beginning to finish, there's an odd sort of impression I was left with where, and maybe this is just a personal thing, but as we're going along, there's a lot going on. And unfortunately, maybe it's a function of time. Maybe it's a function of it just didn't strike me in the same way. But there were aspects of this that land, and then there are aspects that don't, because I'm not given enough time to be with or process it. And it feels like there are certain moments that hit, and it's like, oh, I'd like to spend a little more time with this as an audience member, just because I want to feel a little bit more connected to it. And I'll pull something that just seems really weird, but their performance or whatever, like spending a little more time with that and with that play and what it meant to her, if anything, or having her say, well, you know what, it actually wound up not meaning the thing that I thought it would mean or what have you. I'm not trying to rewrite, but I'm just trying to give sort of a clumsy example of how there's so much going on that I know I said earlier, I'm a little bit older, so I've got a little bit more distance there, but it felt too frenetic at points where there's so much going on that emotionally I don't wind up connecting as strongly with things as I would have liked to. The dad I wind up connecting to because I'm a dad of teenagers. And so maybe that's why that part jumps out at me, as I'm like, yeah, okay, that feels right on, and the stress and all of that stuff, and making the decision not to, express that in a certain way, those sorts of things. Maybe, I know I'm being clumsy when I'm saying this, but it's like, I think it's almost a victim of the fact that it is such tight storytelling that maybe the appeal of this film is limited by its very nature. You both have said, you're closer in time to when this is set and the type of lifestyle it goes through. Maybe that's just the nature of it, where I'm never going to get an emotional punch from this, but I'll be able to intellectually go along with it and get what's being told.
I think I get what you're saying. I think that's a completely valid criticism, because there's a lot of things that are messy, like high school life. There's a lot of things that are messy that doesn't always get a lot of attention, like Miguel and Shelley. You're kind of like, okay, what's the point of this? What's going on here? Why is this happening? But at the same time, they're not worthless, because they're utilized for storytelling beats later on, and and everything like that. But I think one thing that kind of comes up that I don't really get the final, I don't think it really lands, is the whole math teacher pseudo obsession that Beanie has, or Julie has, the best friend has.
Yep.
You're just kind of like, why is that there? That's weird. I would have rather have seen Lady Bird and Julie together more than have this weird side plot of Julie being sad that Mr. Bruno has a wife. It's one of those things. It's just an example,
Yeah, it feels almost as if it's when it's coming together, compulsion to say, well, Julie needs a moment to flesh out her character more, and it just doesn't work as well as it could have. I don't know. That's
yeah. No,
and
that's, I think that's me trying to say, like, oh yeah, no, like, even though I think I connected to this more than you, I totally get that criticism where I think sometimes the frenetic nature pays off if you just stick with it, but at other times you're just kind of like, no, that could have been cut and then time spent elsewhere. Right. But like with Julie, I was able to connect with Julie pretty quickly, and I think that gives a lot of credit to Gerwig, Ronan, and of course Feldstein. It's either Feldstein or Feldstein. I apologize, I don't know which it is. And she, I think, does a really great job of just welcoming you in immediately with her performance. Like, you immediately know who she is, what she's about, and you're like, I would be friends with her. I would absolutely be friends with her. And I loved the stupid moments where they're eating the wafers and talking about masturbation. It's so blasphemous but innocent at the same time. And I think that's one of those things that I think really is interesting about this, is that, like, you have, just like the relationship that she has with her mom, is that it's really close but also really crazy. And like with Lady Bird, like, you're like, she wants to be a rebel, but she doesn't really do anything really crazy. Like, she's like, I'm gonna get some cigarettes and I got a porno mag, and that is freaking, like, when she's looking at the naked man, it's freaking hilarious.
I think that there are a couple of moments, though, where the humor is a little, maybe it's just not my brand of humor. I'll give Gerwig credit for giving them the line where, when the girl comes in, she's like, you're not supposed to eat those. And they're like, they're not consecrated. That's almost anticipating somebody like me in the audience being like, no, it's not, you shouldn't do it, but it's not that big a deal.
Yeah, exactly.
But as somebody who is Catholic and has, taken communion numerous times, nobody eats those wafers for fun. It's not exactly like it's not like, hey, this is a peanut butter chip. It's like, no, you don't snack on those things. That's not really anything.
Hey, listen, any port in a storm. Okay, that's
no, not really, not really. But and there's. Even that moment though, where she turns 18 and she's like, I'm going to get cigarettes in a porno mag. It's like, that actually is a moment that really I disconnected from, because that felt like the forced sort of, I'm going to make it a comment on American society thing. And I'm like, is that doesn't feel like that's this movie.
How is that a comment on American society? I don't understand that. I know tons of people have done that. I did that when I turned 18.
When you turned 18, you went down and you bought a pack of cigarettes. Well, I was smoking before I was 18.
I literally did. I bought a pack of cigarettes just so I could show them my ID. Oh. And my sister did it, and my cousins did it. Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
It just didn't land for me there. Again, probably because I had started smoking before I was 18. So,
Yeah. Like I shot porno mags when I was 16.
17.
Oh, again, man, I was
and I will until I'm 83. But the okay. Well, what was I got to know now? What was the brand of cigarettes that you bought when you turned 18? Because it's 21 now, so yeah, like that's working. But when you turned 18 and you bought a pack of cigarettes, what was it?
It had a green top.
Menthols? You bought menthols?
I don't think it was menthols.
Oh, I hope not.
But it had a green. It wasn't menthols, but it had a green top. I don't know, man. I bought the cheapest ones.
I was a heavy smoker for a very long time, and I have nothing but disdain for because menthols usually had green. Darren, what brand cigarettes did you buy?
I didn't smoke. You
didn't even buy a pack of cigarettes?
Either. No, I would definitely not be able to handle it. I've always had like a low tolerance to like smoke in general, and that was never even on the plate for me.
So it was 2 pornographic magazines when you turned 18?
Two.
No, it was not.
2. Okay. All right. Well,
all right. Before we wrap up, because we're about to hit the hour mark here in a couple of minutes, we do have to talk about Timothée Chalamet, because everybody's talking about Timothée Chalamet right now, and I loved how absolutely cringy his character was, because it was so real. It was like, oh my God, I knew that guy. I was that guy in certain aspects, and you're just like, God dang it, Gerwig. Why did you have to write that so clearly?
Did you believe that about cell phones in 2000?
Oh my gosh.
Tristan?
It's just like
that guy.
The manipulation, well, you're choosing to be angry right now. I'm sure I'd said that in high school because it made me sound like an intellectual, or like the pseudo intellectual crap that comes out of his mouth where you realize he's full of crap. It's so perfect. Like, this is a guy who's gotten by on his looks for so long that he just knows that if he just says something that sounds smart, no one's going to question him because he's good looking.
I'm in a band. Yeah, you might have heard it. It meets in a parking lot because it's so underground, but not an underground parking lot, an above ground parking lot.
But yes, that is a well drawn character. That is definitely a well drawn character, and I think there is credit deserving of Chalamet, because much like Ronan, I believe this guy exists. I feel like you said, I feel like I knew this guy in some regards. Yeah. I mean,
another small role. I love the coach too, who takes over the drama class. It's funny. And he's trying so hard. He's like, okay, you're actor number 1. He's like drawing it on the board, and we all see the joke coming a mile away. It is not trying to be subtle, but it is still hilarious. Where it's like when your PE teacher becomes your science teacher, and you're like, how is this going to work? I love that bit. It's so.
But I love that he pulls it off, and that he jumps in the air, and he's super invested. And also at the same time, like when he's doing the blocking, I'm like, yeah, man, that's how you do it.
Like, and then you're gonna move down stage, and that's what this line means. And everyone's like, okay. I mean, you're giving us blocking, and I love how you're smart enough to be like, they're like, well, what are our roles? And he's like, well, I asked this other teacher who actually knows you all to assign the roles, because he would have no idea. He's like, you're number player 1, 2, 3, 4 as far as he's concerned at this moment.
Oh, speaking of which, Merrily We Roll Along is going to be a Linkletter picture that's going to come out in 2040, and Beanie Feldstein.
Of course it is. Of course,
Beanie Feldstein, who played the lead in the play in Lady Bird, is going to be the lead in the movie, and they're filming it every little a little bit every year, just like Boyhood.
Doing the Boyhood thing. Okay,
and like I just think that's so cool that Beanie's going to do that. I think that's great that it started here in Lady Bird.
It is cool, but and everybody, please understand, I really enjoy the film Boyhood. I think it's a great film. But just the whole thing of like, I'm going to film this over it's like, that's a documentary. Just do a documentary. Just follow a family around for 15 years. Okay. So just having fun with it.
Stop being such a curmudgeon.
Oh,
all right.
I'm 83. Okay. Take it easy. All right.
All right. So Darren, per tradition, you get to rate this first. I want to know how many Playgirl magazines are you giving this picture?
I knew that's what you were going to say. Let's see. How many trips on the I-80 as we go by? How many loops around to the airport? We'll do that. Gosh, I'm going to give it a 4. It's a really good movie. I enjoyed it. It's not a bad movie. There's nothing I hated about it or was like, oh, this took me out or anything like that. I think my view is still really summed up with like the first thing I said, that this feels like a circuit movie, like a film festival, which is not a bad thing. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, but that's a kind of vibe. It's her first movie. It checks all those boxes, but it is good. And I can see why, I look at, probably should remember these names, but director who did Tron Legacy,
Kaczynski.
That was very early in his career as well. Like he was just like boom, 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 and now I'm doing Tron Legacy. So it's really interesting to see where Greta is going to go with this. I'm also excited where she's going to go after Barbie, because she's just on the beginning of that upswing in her career. So yeah, I'm going to give it a solid 4 trips around to the airport. And it did make me a little nostalgic though for, pull out the VHS of my senior year high school video that we have. And because 2002, I mean, we were the class of 9/11. That happened my senior year. It was a really interesting time. The pre-cell phones, the no social media. This movie captured it really well. I mean, they even had the one shot of the 9/11 Never Forget poster. And I'm like, yeah, that was up because that was that year.
John.
Well, this is how many packs of Marlboro Reds? Well, actually, no, when I first started smoking, it was Camel Lights. So, okay, how many packs of Camel Lights do I give it? This is where I'm particularly heartless. I get it. Everybody can hate me. It's a 3-star film. It's really well put together. I see a lot of promise from Gerwig. This is a director where I say, all of the praise stands. All of the performances are there. It just, for me, and I think I dropped enough hints to this, it lacked the emotional connection. I didn't have that. And so for me, it becomes very much an exercise in this person told a story. They told it very, very well, but there's nothing in here that makes me say, and I treasured the experience, and so I'm going to go back and revisit it at some point in the future. So it's well put together. I see a lot of promise in Gerwig here, but the film itself is good, but not great. So that's a 3 from me.
I don't think that's brutal. I think with how you approached it and everything that you said leading up to it, you didn't have any 3 is totally respectable score from the issues that you had with it. For me, I'm much more in Darren's camp. I'm giving it a 4. This is a solid 4 for me. This was I grin ear to ear when I watch it. I've watched this twice now. I saw it when it first came out on physical release. I missed it in the theater. I missed it at the circuit, and it was something that when I first saw it, I liked this the second time as much as I liked it the first time, and that is rare sometimes for me. And I really connect with all the characters in this, and not because they're great people or particularly special, but just because they're so real and relatable, the good things and the bad things in all of them. And I laughed, and there's no moment when I cried. Like, there was no moment when I was like, I just can't handle it, or anything like that. But I think for the reasons, it's not a 5-star film for me because of some of the frenetic things that we talked about that don't work. And also the ending is kind of weird. Like, it's just like, oh, we don't know how this is going to end. And so we're going to wrap this up instead of sending her off to college and then like having that be a little bit more emotional, or have her like read the letters on the plane or something. I don't know. Again, I'm not saying I could do it better than Gerwig. I'm just saying that like it just felt odd. It felt out of place. And so that's why I'm knocking it down a star to 4. A very respectable, very solid, very great 4. So Darren, what are we doing next week?
Next week, we're jumping to 2019's Little Women. A period piece, as John would say, here on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.